Greetings and welcome to In-Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. Creative director, strategist, production designer, and storyteller Richard Young is once again combining creative forces with John Maxwell Trained Coach, entrepreneur, philanthropist, mentor, designer, speaker, and best-selling author Dr. Sonia Noel. They are building personal and brand capacity in their latest endeavor. Stay with us to find out how. Welcome to you both. It's the first time we're speaking, though, Dr. Noel, so I want to start with you, please. Glad to finally be able to speak with you. Describe the synergy that you and Mr. Young have, because it seems as though you collaborate frequently. What is it that works so much for you?
Listen, if you sure you want me to do that, we will spend the entire duration doing that, because it is so eclectic, it's so majestic, there's not enough words to describe. And I always believe that people meet for a reason. And that chance meeting in, I think it's St. Lucia, which was years ago, to what it has become, but there was always a connection there. You know, they said like minds and like hearting. This is here a heart connection. And Richard is someone that I have grown to. I mean, when I call him genius, he's like, oh, you know, he doesn't like me to say that. But he has the most genius mind I've ever encountered on anyone. I'm telling you, in anywhere I have traveled. And we are like brothers. My mom says that's her son. So it has become more than a friendship. It's become more than a creative director for things that I've done. And what is so profound is when we meet, like right now he's in Guyana, he's like, welcome home. It's like he is home. He is home. And I know that the other parts of the island will be getting jealous, but that is their problem. We love him because he has contributed. He has added value to so many lives. Collectively, we have done things that people thought were not possible. It was just an idea. And just talking over things, Richard, why don't we do this? Or Sonia, why don't we do that? And I trust him so much that I just say, when in any of my events, I just totally give him, Richard, you are the creative director, and he has, among other things, I don't even look back. That's how much I trust him, because he is one of the best minds in the Caribbean. And we are very, very happy and very fortunate to have him here in Guyana. And as a friend, I am honored to call him a brother, a friend, and all the other names. But it has worked. It has worked for over a decade, and it continues to. And even in the pandemic, we even did some things together, the writers' retreat and all of that. So even though we were apart, he was still part of my life and part of what we are doing here. So it's just, oh, geez, it's just, It is one of those marriage that they wouldn't have a divorce, that kind of thing. And divorce is not acceptable on either side. That is long and short of it.
No, Richard, I'm not even going to, I say brother Richard, I'm not even going to ask you to respond to that, but let me try not to be jealous and tell you just have a cane juice and an egg bowl for me. But in terms of building personal development, why have an initiative like this? What is the key, or what is personal development? What does that help to unlock?
Well, I think one of the things that unleashed for me, what people see as my confident aura, what people see as my articulate prowess, and it has been sharpened over the years by practice. So when I started working with models and working with pageants and I've trained people even to present at fora, using style and elegance and grace and the ability to be on stage and knowing your body and crafting perceptions and using your anatomy as a tool to signal. I did a lot of reading on it. This is not something that I schooled myself in an institution, but I did my own institutionalizing of it. And I have formulated a way to communicate that is very Caribbean in its origin and very related and requisite to us in this space. And I believe it is a way to show the world how people of a multicultural, multi-ethnic space who present New World style as an option, the template of style, to communicate and to feel better about themselves. It crafts the best version that you can have of yourself. And therefore you are able to access personal pride. And when you have personal pride, then you can transfer that to prestige for whomever you are representing. So it came from there. And it's life skill training. I teach my models and my talent. I look at them as talent that needs to be preserved and managed and honed and curated. And so I've taken on that responsibility. I take it on very seriously, so that when you pass through my hands, I learn from you, you learn from me. But you feel better about yourself, you feel more responsible and meaningful, and you have sustainable life chance.
And in terms of that learning, that goes both ways. That's something I want to get back to, because sometimes it feels as though we can only learn from someone who has come from outside of our space, be it outside our exact geographical space or regional space. The person needs to look a certain way, and that's the only time, or they need to have certain letters behind their name versus experience, and that's the only time we pay them any mind. But how important is it that we're able to take lessons and we're able to teach that dual flow of information from someone who is right next to us? Because even there's the point of nuance. So someone from outside, they might know what that means, and there's that significance. I see you nodding, Dr. Noel. So speak to that first, thanks.
Yes, I think unfortunately, you give it to me, right? I
Yes,
don't want
please.
to. Did you think? Yes, okay. Unfortunately, sometimes we think when it's out of this region, it's better. I have known many cases, and I'm happy that you mentioned that about letters behind their names, because personal experience, nothing beating personal experience. I have known people with a lot of letters behind their names, but personal experience and personal story, because you've walked the walk. Some people, it's all theory. And even when I was Richard was editing my book, my first book, Living with Intention, because I have walked the walk. I can write about when I become more intentional about my life, because I've walked the walk. I have been deep down in the valley, and I've been at the mountaintops. So there's nothing like Richard. He has coined the Caribbean aesthetic. He can do that because he's been to the French, the English, the Dutch, the Dutch Caribbean. So he can go in spaces and with authority to talk about something. So I am very happy you touched on that, because in many cases, people, Richard is right there in Trinidad. And I'm sure now, I mean, it is better, but I used to be looking at him and said, I cannot understand how they can't see the value that you bring to the table. Right? So that I'm happy that you touched on that, because it has happened in too many instances where they think outside of the region, this person is saying this, somebody can be saying it all the time. No, then take them on. Somebody come in and they pay a lot of money for consultancy to say the same thing. And yes, they're given a nod. Yep.
And with that, we take a short break, because speak to that, please, because I don't want to cut you off, but we're going to take the break after your response, please, Richard.
Yeah, because colonialism presented itself that we always looked at metropolitan values and first world values. But I definitely am affirming that we can craft our own methodologies, and that's what I have been doing. So that is how I got involved in the fashion. It's fashion performance to merchandise our wares, our creative wares. And I don't ever rest on my last laurel. I am constantly evolving and finding ways and charting and forging ways that speak to the space, because as Sonia mentioned, I have worked throughout the region. I've been hired by a private sector Caribbean. I've been hired by governmental agencies. I've hired by non-governmental agencies who are looking at my trajectory, and they feel it wise to bring me in to help imbue a sense of confidence in the creatives, particularly with creative entrepreneurs, about how they manifest their confidence in their work and in their products and in their services. So that is what I feel I am now reveling. And Sonia always has a way of saying that I have put my deposits in and it's time for withdrawal. And I said, I don't feel all of that. I'm not about ego. I just do it all the time. And by the constant doing, the practice is getting better. So now it can be called the best practice, because we have a history of it having worked in spaces, urban Caribbean, rural Caribbean, Northern Caribbean, Central Caribbean, continental South American Caribbean, because I've worked in Suriname and French Guiana throughout the space where I have been called to create energy out of the burgeoning that exists. And so That's what I feel proud about, and I constantly want to do it. So I don't ever sit back on my laurels. I constantly want to craft a way. I'm always anxious about the way forward, and I always instill it with elements and energy from the space within which I work, just using my expertise to craft it.
And when we return, I want us to speak to that evolution of practice that speaks to the regional space. We do that when we return, and how you're actually taking people along for that journey with you. Stay with us. We come back with more. Welcome back. We are speaking about building personal and corporate brands. We're doing so with Dr. Sonia Noel. We're also speaking with Richard Young, and looking at this life of service that you've crafted yourself around. And I think that's for the both of you. Dr. Noel, there are you're inviting persons to come and take part. Now, I'm seeing the profit profile, branding, competitiveness, innovation, service, excellence. That's a little mouthful. What is it about? What do you want individuals to come away with?
Why I'm excited about the profit profile is because small businesses like myself, we don't have that kind of money, like a budget for advertising. So the tools that will be deposited in their toolkits there would definitely set them apart and take them to the next level. And what I love about the content of this, because profit also must have purpose, because there's a philanthropic edge there also, that's included in the content. Because Richard and I have right through all the projects that we have done, like Martin Luther King said, not everyone can be great, but everyone can be famous, because greatness is determined by service. So whatever services that you provide, it must passion and purpose, all of that is going to be in there. So we are actually helping people to identify exactly what their strengths are in their businesses, how they can pivot, how they can scale. There's so many things that will be loaded in there. And the model image, looking at me now, you wouldn't know how shy I was. I was very, very introverted and very, very shy. So confidence is one of the things that I love. I'm so, so passionate about people, assisting people to let them experience what it feels like to be that confident woman or man. And that is some of the content that's going to be in there, because I know what it's like to lack it, and I know what it's like to have it. So we've done the model image here before, and we have seen transformation of lives. Both of us, when sometimes we look at each other, and when we start remembering some of the things we've done and the lives that we have touched, our dash must really dance. The time we were born to the time we die. And that's what we want to also encourage people to live that purpose-driven life, to live their full lives, to give the world the best version of themselves. So they must live full and die empty. So that's in a nutshell. Richard is going to amplify a little bit more on that.
And even before you amplify, Richard, the fact that there is, and I like the conversation that we're having, because sometimes you can be talking about this, but you realize you're talking about something else. You'd have educators talking about the hidden curriculum. But in terms of instilling that level of confidence within individuals so that they are not ashamed and they actually love who they see in the mirror. Because many times I think there are individuals who look in the mirror and be like, I was hoping for somebody else. But in terms of dealing with who we are and what we have, self-care and grooming, sometimes people let the models them do that, man. But the people in the beauty industry, how do you bring that aspect in terms of self-care, grooming into building personal confidence, which should extend to an individual's brand?
Well, I think a lot of times people are not risk takers. So with the lack of confidence and lack of charisma, which is one of the things that you kind of embolden when you start practicing the techniques and the methodologies that are used by trailblazers of style, you borrow from them, and it implicitly starts to impact. It implicitly starts to show itself. You start seeing yourself being empowered, sitting differently, walking differently. Your deportment is now transformed, because now you have tenets of deportment in the way you maneuver and your carriage, the way you sit, the way you speak, the way you enunciate, the way you communicate and handshake, the way you are courteous on the phone, introductory tips on etiquette, and it builds a work and boosts a work ethic, because there's now something to do that invigorates what you do. So it's not just about the chore of doing things. It's about this amplified version, which makes you feel better about yourself in the doing. And so these are the techniques that I bring to bear, that even with my models, they feel better about the stage because there's always a story, because I believe in storytelling. In fact, I want to drop all my titles and say storyteller, the griot tradition of West Africa that was passed on. And this is the way we carried on traditions, and mores. We carried that by telling it, craftily. And so that's what I do. I tell you and I pass the message on. It's all about signaling. It's all about messaging. It's all about manipulating perception. It's all about crafting a story that brings an excellent outcome. It's not about gimmickry. It's about being authentic as well in the telling of the story. So in the way you sit, what you convey to people. I always tell people, imagine somebody peeping through the crack of a door and seeing you in the room, and they're walking away with an assumption of who you are. So in that moment, that unguarded moment, because of how you hold your body, how you hold your face, and how you prepare yourself in terms of tidbits about skincare and how you groom your hair and the creative wardrobe planning and the color choices and the silhouettes and all of that, it makes you have an edge. And that's what gives you the competitive edge. That gives you brand identity. You're leaving memorable, lasting impressions. And people want that person working in their space. And you feel better about yourself individually. So it's individual pride that goes into corporate prestige, because you're now adding value, because all this is about adding value. And
but
there
is that value, though, Richard, because we have about 2 minutes more, though. But I want to ask, in the person who is amplifying themselves at this point in time, trying to become a better version of themselves, how do they treat with a level of possibly imposter syndrome? I take the people thing and I'm trying it while I'm trying for me to become that. You have a minute, because I have that last minute for Dr. Noel. Thanks.
Well, we all have that imposter syndrome hanging over us. I mean, we just did one of the thing called The Other Side of Fear, which was a talk. I had 2 doctors on my panel. I am there thinking, can I do this? I have fear about how I can do it. But then I say, I have been able to communicate. I have been able to articulate. I have been able to access people and access people's thinking. I have been able to help people unlearn and relearn. And therefore, I go with what my fortified ability is, and I do it. And that is where the confidence is, and that's what leads into leadership. So I think we have to unshackle ourselves from the imposter syndrome, because when you have walked the walk, as Sonia said before, and talked the talk, you have become in the space to be able, you're competent, and you have the capacity to transfer.
And that makes me, and that bleeds right so lovely into the question I have for Dr. Noel. Success depends on a growth mindset. If that's the short version, give me a minute of your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Oh, that is so true. And talking about leadership, everything rises and falls on leadership. Richard was just mentioning what leads into leadership. The mind, the way we think, it is so powerful. And that's why Mahatma Gandhi said, I would not allow anyone with dirty feet to walk through my mind. The power of the mindset. We did that recently. So that limiting beliefs, coming back to us, like erasing that imposter syndrome is, because we all come with that little doubt sometimes, but when you get to learn to win from the inside, knowing who you are, society can't tell you who you are. So it's you have to be intentional. Growth is not accidental. It is intentional. You have to be intentional about your growth. You have to listen to things, read the things, do the things to get you into that growth mindset. And they have thoughts sometimes going to come to you to make you doubt yourself. But again, when you have that foundation of knowing who you are and winning from the inside, you don't need the validation from the outside at all. So that is how that growth. It's very, very important to constantly have something in plan, whatever you plan, the growth plan, something has to be there every day to contribute to your growth. And the people you surround yourself with, very vital. Who's in your front row? Who's listening to you? Who are you listening to? Even the music that you listen to, we have to be intentional. If we want to have that growth mindset, we have to be intentional about the things we do every day. Some habits we have to drop.
And I think I'm going to be playing this conversation over and over to pick up some of those nuggets from both of you. But we want to thank you so much, Dr. Noel, Dr. Sonia Noel, as well as you, Richard Young. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.